Chapter 4. The Reluctance of the Bodhisattvas. Then the Buddha said to the Bodhisattva Maitreya, Maitreya, go to the Likshavi Vimalakirti to inquire about his illness. Maitreya replied, Lord, I am indeed reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness. Why? Lord, I remember that one day I was engaged in a conversation with the gods of the Tusita heaven. The god Samtusita and his retinue about the stage of non-regression of the great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Likshavi Vimalakirti came there and addressed me as follows. Maitreya, the Buddha has prophesied that only one more birth stands between you and unexcelled perfect enlightenment. What kind of birth does this prophecy concern? Maitreya, is it past, is it future, or is it present? If it is a past birth, it is already finished. If it is a future birth, it will never arrive. If it is a present birth, it does not abide, for the Buddha has declared. Pictures, in a single moment you are born, you age, you die, you transmigrate, and you are reborn. Then might the prophecy concern birthlessness. But birthlessness applies to the stage of destiny for the ultimate, in which there is neither prophecy nor attainment of perfect enlightenment. Therefore, Maitreya, is your reality from birth, or is it from cessation? Your reality as prophesied is not born and does not cease, nor will it be born, nor will it cease. Furthermore, your reality is just the same as the reality of all living beings, the reality of all things and the reality of all the holy ones. If your enlightenment can be prophesied in such a way, so can that of all living beings. Why? Because reality does not consist of duality or of diversity, Maitreya. Whenever you attain Buddhahood, which is the perfection of enlightenment, at the same time all living beings will also attain ultimate liberation. Why? The Tathagatas do not enter ultimate liberation until all living beings have entered ultimate liberation. For since all living beings are utterly liberated, the Tathagatas see them as having the nature of ultimate liberation. Therefore, Maitreya, do not fool and delude these deities. No one abides in or regresses from enlightenment, Maitreya. You should introduce these deities to the repudiation of all discriminative constructions concerning enlightenment. Enlightenment is perfectly realized neither by the body nor by the mind. Enlightenment is the eradication of all marks. Enlightenment is free of presumptions concerning all objects. Enlightenment is free of the functioning of all intentional thoughts. Enlightenment is the annihilation of all convictions. Enlightenment is free from all discriminative constructions. Enlightenment is free from all vacillation, mentation, and agitation. Enlightenment is not involved in any commitments. Enlightenment is the arrival at detachment through freedom from all habitual attitudes. The ground of enlightenment is the ultimate realm. Enlightenment is realization of reality. Enlightenment abides at the limit of reality. Enlightenment is without duality, since therein are no minds and no things. Enlightenment is equality, since it is equal to infinite space. Enlightenment is unconstructed, because it is neither born nor destroyed, neither abides nor undergoes any transformation. Enlightenment is the complete knowledge of the thoughts, deeds, and inclinations of all living beings. Enlightenment is not a door for the six media of sense. Enlightenment is unadulterated, since it is free of the passions of the instinctually driven succession of lives. Enlightenment is neither somewhere nor nowhere, abiding in no location or dimension. Enlightenment, not being contained in anything, does not stand in reality. Enlightenment is merely a name, and even that name is unmoving. Enlightenment free of abstention and undertaking is energyless. There is no agitation in enlightenment, as it is utterly pure by nature. Enlightenment is radiance, pure in essence. Enlightenment is without subjectivity and completely without object. Enlightenment which penetrates the equality of all things is undifferentiate. Enlightenment which is not shown by any example is incomparable. Enlightenment is subtle, since it is extremely difficult to realize. Enlightenment is all-pervasive, as it has the nature of infinite space. Enlightenment cannot be realized, either physically or mentally. Why? The body is like grass, trees, walls, paths, and hallucinations. And the mind is immaterial, invisible, baseless, and unconscious. Lord, when Vimalakirti had discoursed thus, 200 of the deities in that assembly attained the tolerance of birthlessness. As for me, Lord, I was rendered speechless, therefore I am reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness.
The Buddha then said to the young Likshavi Prabhavyuha, Prabhavyuha, go to the Likshavi Vimalakirti to inquire about his illness. Prabhavyuha replied, Lord, I am indeed reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness. Why? Lord, I remember one day when I was going out of the great city of Vaisali. I met the Likshavi Vimalakirti coming in. He greeted me, and I then addressed him. Householder, where do you come from? He replied, I come from the seat of enlightenment. I then inquired, what is meant by seat of enlightenment? He then spoke the following words to me, Noble son, the seat of enlightenment is the seat of positive thought because it is without artificiality. It is the seat of effort because it releases energetic activities. It is the seat of high resolve because its insight is superior. It is the seat of the great spirit of enlightenment because it does not neglect anything. It is the seat of generosity because it has no expectation of reward. It is the seat of morality because it fulfills all commitments. It is the seat of tolerance because it is free of anger toward any living being. It is the seat of effort because it does not turn back. It is the seat of meditation because it generates fitness of mind. It is the seat of wisdom because it sees everything directly. It is the seat of love because it is equal to all living beings. It is the seat of compassion because it tolerates all injuries. It is the seat of joy because it is joyfully devoted to the bliss of the Dharma. It is the seat of equanimity because it abandons affection and aversion. It is the seat of paranormal perception because it has the 6 super knowledges. It is the seat of liberation because it does not intellectualize. It is the seat of liberative technique because it develops living beings. It is the seat of the means of unification because it brings together living beings. It is the seat of learning because it makes practice of the essence. It is the seat of decisiveness because of its precise discrimination. It is the seat of the aids to enlightenment because it eliminates the duality of the compounded and the uncompounded. It is the seat of truth because it does not deceive anyone. It is the seat of independent origination because it proceeds from the exhaustion of ignorance to the exhaustion of old age and death. It is the seat of eradication of all passions because it is perfectly enlightened about the nature of reality. It is the seat of all living beings because all living beings are without intrinsic identity. It is the seat of all things because it is perfectly enlightened with regard to voidness. It is the seat of the conquest of all devils because it never flinches. It is the seat of the triple world because it is free of involvement. It is the seat of the heroism that sounds the lion's roar because it is free of fear and trembling. It is the seat of the strengths, the fearlessnesses, and all the special qualities of the Buddha because it is irreproachable in all respects. It is the seat of the three knowledge because in it no passions remain. It is the seat of instantaneous total understanding of all things because it realizes fully the gnosis of omniscience. Noble son, when bodhisattvas are thus endowed with the transcendences, the roots of virtue, the ability to develop living beings, and the incorporation of the holy Dharma, whether they lift up their feet or put them down, they all come from the seat of enlightenment. They come from the qualities of the Buddha and stand on the qualities of the Buddha. Lord, when Vimalakirti had explained this teaching, 500 gods and men conceived the spirit of enlightenment, and I became speechless. Therefore, Lord, I am reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness.
The Buddha then said to the Bodhisattva Jagatimdara, Jagatimdara, go to the Likshavi Vimalakirti to inquire about his illness. Jagatimdara replied, My lord, I am indeed reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness. Why? Lord, I remember that one day, when I was at home, the wicked Mara, disguised as Indra and surrounded with 12,000 heavenly maidens, approached me with the sounds of music and singing. Having saluted me by touching my feet with his head, he withdrew with his retinue to one side. I then, thinking he was Sakra, the king of the gods, said to him, Welcome, O Kausika. You should remain consciously aware in the midst of the pleasures of desire. You should often think on impermanence and strive to utilize the essential in body, life, and wealth. Mara then said to me, Good sir, accept from me these 12,000 divine maidens and make them your servants. I replied, O Kausika, do not offer me, who am religious and a son of the Sakya, things which are not appropriate. It is not proper for me to have these maidens. No sooner had I said these words than the Likshavi Vimalakirti came there and said to me, Noble son, do not think that this is Indra. This is not Indra, but the evil Mara, who has come to ridicule you. Then the Likshavi Vimalakirti said to Mara, Evil Mara, since these heavenly maidens are not suitable for this religious devotee, a son of the Sakya, give them to me. Then Mara was terrified and distressed, thinking that the Likshavi Vimalakirti had come to expose him. He tried to make himself invisible, but try as he might with all his magical powers, he could not vanish from sight. Then a voice resounded in the sky, saying, Evil one, give these heavenly maidens to the good man Vimalakirti, and only then will you be able to return to your own abode. Then Mara was even more frightened, much against his will, gave the heavenly maidens. The Likshavi Vimalakirti, having received the goddesses, said to them, Now that you have been given to me by Mara, you should all conceive the spirit of unexcelled, perfect enlightenment. He then exhorted them with discourse suitable for their development toward enlightenment. And soon they conceived the spirit of enlightenment. He then said to them, "You have just conceived the spirit of enlightenment. From now on, you should devote yourselves to find joy in pleasures of the Dharma, and should take no pleasure in desires." They then asked him, "What is joy in the pleasures of the Dharma?"
He declared, "It is the joy of unbreakable faith in the Buddha, of wishing to hear the Dharma, of serving the Sangha and honoring the spiritual benefactors without pride. It is the joy of renunciation of the whole world, of not being fixed in objects, of considering the five aggregates to be like murderers, of considering the elements to be like venomous serpents, and of considering the sense media to be like an empty town. It is the joy of always guarding the spirit of enlightenment, of helping living beings, of sharing through generosity, of not slackening in morality, of control and tolerance and patience, of thorough cultivation of virtue by effort, of total absorption in meditation, and of absence of passions and wisdom. It is the joy of extending enlightenment, of conquering the maras, of destroying the passions, and of purifying the Buddha field. It is the joy of accumulating all virtues in order to cultivate the auspicious marks and signs. It is the joy of the liberation of non-intimidation when hearing the profound teaching. It is the joy of explanation of the three doors of liberation and of the realization of liberation. It is the joy of being an ornament of the seed of enlightenment and of not attaining liberation at the wrong time. It is the joy of serving those of equal fortune, of not hating or resenting those of superior fortune, of serving the spiritual benefactors, and of avoiding sinful friends. It is the joy of the superior gladness of faith and devotion to the Dharma. It is the joy of acquiring liberative techniques and of the conscious cultivation of the aids to enlightenment. Thus, the Bodhisattva admires and finds joy in the delights of the Dharma. Thereupon, Mara said to the goddesses, "Now come along and let us return home." They said, "You gave us to this householder. Now we should enjoy the delights of the Dharma, and should no longer enjoy the pleasures of desires." Then Mara said to the Likhavi Vimalakirti, "If it is so that the Bodhisattva, the spiritual hero, has no mental attachment and gives away all his possessions, then, householder, please give me these goddesses." Vimalakirti replied, "They are given. Mara, go home with your retinue. May you fulfill the religious aspirations of all living beings." Then the goddesses, saluting Vimalakirti, said to him, "Householder, how should we live in the abode of the Maras?" Vimalakirti replied, "Sisters, there is a door of the Dharma called the inexhaustible lamp. Practice it. What is it? Sisters, a single lamp may light hundreds of thousands of lamps without itself being diminished. Likewise, sisters, a single bodhisattva may establish many hundreds of thousands of living beings in enlightenment without his mindfulness being diminished. In fact, not only does it not diminish, it grows stronger. Likewise, the more you teach and demonstrate virtuous qualities to others, the more you grow with respect to these virtuous qualities. This is the door of the Dharma called the inexhaustible lamp. When you are living in the realm of Mara, Inspire innumerable gods and goddesses with the spirit of enlightenment. In such a way you will repay the kindness of the Tathagata, and you will become the benefactors of all living beings. Then those goddesses bowed at the feet of the Likhavi Vimalakirti and departed in the company of Marathas Lord. I saw the supremacy of the magical power, wisdom, and eloquence of the Likhavi Vimalakirti, and therefore I am reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness.
The Buddha then said to the merchant's son, Sudatta, noble son, go to the Likhavi Vimalakirti to inquire about his illness. Sudatta replied, Lord, I am indeed reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness. Why? Lord, I remember one day in my father's house when, in order to celebrate a great sacrifice, I was bestowing gifts upon religious devotees, Brahmins, the poor, the wretched, the unfortunate, beggars, and all the needy. On the seventh and final day of this great sacrifice, the Likhavi Vimalakirti came there and said, Merchant son, you should not celebrate a sacrifice in this way. You should celebrate a Dharma sacrifice. What is the use of the sacrifice of material things? I then asked him, how does one give a Dharma sacrifice? He replied, a Dharma sacrifice is that which develops living beings without beginning or end, giving gifts to them all simultaneously. What is that? It consists of the great love which is consummated in enlightenment, of the great compassion which is consummated in the concentration of the holy Dharma on the liberation of all living beings, of the great joy which is consummated in the awareness of the supreme happiness of all living beings, and of the great equanimity which is consummated in concentration through knowledge. The Dharma sacrifice consists of the transcendence of generosity, which is consummated in peacefulness and self-discipline, of the transcendence of morality, which is consummated in the moral development of immoral beings, of the transcendence of tolerance consummated through the principle of selflessness, of the transcendence of effort consummated in initiative toward enlightenment, of the transcendence of meditation consummated in the solitude of body and mind, and of the transcendence of wisdom consummated in the omniscient gnosis. The Dharma sacrifice consists of the meditation of voidness, consummated in effectiveness in the development of all living beings, of the meditation of signlessness consummated in the purification of all compounded things, and of the meditation of wishlessness consummated in voluntarily assuming rebirths. The Dharma sacrifice consists of heroic strength consummated in the upholding of the holy Dharma, of the power of life consummated in the means of unification of the absence of pride, consummated in becoming the slave and the disciple of all living beings, of the gain of body, health, and wealth consummated by the extraction of essence from the essenceless, of mindfulness consummated by the 6 remembrances, of positive thought consummated through the truly enjoyable Dharma, of purity of livelihood consummated by correct spiritual practice, of the respect of saints consummated by joyful and faithful service, of soberness of mind consummated by absence of dislike for ordinary people, of high resolve consummated by renunciation, of skill in erudition consummated by religious practice, of retirement in solitary retreats, consummated by understanding things free of passions, of introspective meditation consummated by attainment of the Buddha gnosis, of the stage of the practice of yoga, consummated by the yoga of liberating all living beings from their passions.
The Dharma sacrifice consists of the store of merit which is consummated by the auspicious signs, and marks the ornaments of the Buddha fields and all other means of development of living being. Of the store of knowledge which is consummated in the ability to teach the Dharma according to the thoughts and actions of all living beings. Of the store of wisdom which is consummated in the uniform gnosis free of acceptance and rejection in regard to all things. Of the store of all roots of virtue consummated in the abandonment of all passions, obscurations, and unvirtuous things. And of the attainment of all the aids to enlightenment consummated in the realization of the gnosis of omniscience as well as an accomplishment of all virtue. That noble son is the Dharma sacrifice. The bodhisattva who lives by this Dharma sacrifice is the best of sacrifices, and through his extreme sacrifice is himself worthy of offerings from all people, including the gods. Lord, as soon as the householder had discoursed thus, 200 Brahmins among the crowd of Brahmins present conceived the spirit of unexcelled, perfect enlightenment. And I, full of astonishment, having saluted this good man by touching his feet with my head, took from around my neck a necklace of pearls worth 100,000 pieces of gold and offered it to him. But he would not accept it. I then said to him, "Please accept, good man, this necklace of pearls out of compassion for me, and give it to whomsoever you wish." Then Vimalakirti took the pearls and divided them into 2 halves. He gave 1/2 of them to the lowliest poor of the city, who had been disdained by those present at the sacrifice. The other half he offered to the Tathagata Dusprasaha, and he performed a miracle such that all present beheld the universe called Merisi and the Tathagata Dusprasaha. On the head of the Tathagata Dusprasaha, the pearl necklace took the form of a pavilion decorated with strings of pearls resting on 4 bases with 4 columns, symmetrical, well constructed and lovely to behold, having shown such a miracle. Vimalakirti said, "The giver who makes gifts to the lowliest poor of the city, considering them as worthy of offering, is the Tathagata himself. The giver who gives without any discrimination, impartially, with no expectation of reward and with great love, this giver, I say, totally fulfills the Dharma sacrifice." Then the poor of the city, having seen that miracle and having heard that teaching, conceived the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment. Therefore, Lord, I am reluctant to go to that good man to inquire about his illness. In the same way, all the bodhisattvas, great spiritual heroes, told the stories of their conversations with Vimalakirti and declared their reluctance to go to him.